Today's gospel lesson is one of my favorite stories of Jesus, for there's just so much that a preacher can glean from the wonderful symbolism that's in this story. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. The opposite of Galilee. The opposite of home. The opposite of familiarity, the opposite of comfort, the opposite of sanctuary. I believe it's important for the church today to note that the man in this story would not have had an encounter with Jesus that brought him liberation, healing, and restoration if Jesus and his disciples stayed in Galilee. This is one of the reasons I'm so grateful for our disciples' women's fellowship that's chosen to serve at Hope Campus twice a month. For if we want to follow Jesus as his disciples, the church must be willing to leave the sanctuary to encounter people who need liberation and healing and restoration, that we know the love of God can bring them. As he stepped out on land, Jesus and his disciples had been on the lake, and they had just encountered a storm out there. And now, as soon as Jesus steps out of the boat, as soon as Jesus steps on land, they encounter a different kind of storm. A man of the city who had demons met him. A man of the city. Reminds me of another story of Luke when a woman of the city, who was a sinner, Luke adds, anoints Jesus' feet. So right away we get the suspicion that this man had a sinful reputation. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. And here is where we begin to get the picture that this man of the city is not the only sinner in this story. He is unnamed. He is naked. He is homeless. And he lives among the dead. He is treated as if he was no longer alive, as if he did not exist. He is fully debased, degraded, dehumanized, with no rights, no privileges, no power, and no place whatsoever in society. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. He has been driven to the margins of life by the legion. Legion is a technical term for a division of the Roman army. Thus, it is revealed to Jesus that this man is a victim of the Roman Empire and its oppressive systems that do great harm to people like him. Now, we don't know exactly what that means, people like him. But sadly, we could make some good guesses. Could it be that he spoke a foreign language? Was he an undocumented immigrant? Was he a refugee? Perhaps he had a different skin color. Maybe he practiced some kind of minority religion. Did he have cerebral palsy, autism, a traumatic brain injury, Down syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder? Did he suffer with seizures? Could it be that he suffered with some sort of mental illness? Might it be that he was gay or transgendered? Not only is he a victim of unjust political systems, he's also a victim of his community. Unfortunately, that is the power of government. If the state leaders are against you, then it gives permission for society to be against you. He's labeled demon-possessed, which means that he has been fully otherized. There's no evidence that he has ever harmed anyone, yet he is bound with chains and shackles, kept under guard. He is not to be counted in the census. There is no path to citizenship, no process to appeal. There is no grace for this man. In an act of gross dehumanization, he is forced to live among the dead until he dies. This is the evil of our world. It's not a spirit, this evil that's in our world. It's not a spirit that might make us want to just take off all of our clothes and go live in a cemetery. That's not the real evil here. I don't know anyone who really wants to do that. No, the evil of this world is the chaining of this man, the oppression of this man, the dehumanizing treatment of this man, treating him as if he did not even exist among the living, shackling him naked in a graveyard. This is the true demonic evil in this story. And for Jesus and his followers, this type of evil should always be brought out and driven out. Jesus is never happy when any person is demeaned, degraded, dehumanized, excluded from community. Whenever Jesus encounters chains, Jesus breaks those chains. The good news is that every time we draw a line that keeps people out, Jesus is with the people on the other side of that line. This demonic evil, this antichrist spirit that possessed the state and the culture to oppress this man, is further revealed in the fascinating account of the demons leaving the man and entering a herd of swine that were minding their own business, innocently feeding on the hillside. And as soon as the pigs get infected by the demons of this man, they immediately rush down a steep bank where they drown in the lake. I once heard a preacher say that it is right here in this verse where we have the first recorded instance of deviled ham. I know it's a terrible joke. Sounds like the kind of thing we might hear Jim Creekmore say at some point. Poor pigs. What do they do to deserve to become agents of evil? And how could Jesus do such an inhumane thing to any of God's beloved creatures? Questions that come to my mind when I read this. However, we soon discover that these poor pigs were infected with evil long before Jesus showed up. Notice what happens when Jesus liberates the man in verse 37. When they find that the man is liberated, do all the people thank Jesus? No, all the people. All the people in the surrounding country beg Jesus to leave their presence. The demonic evil here is not only the oppression of this man by unjust political systems and a fearful culture, but that the people valued their pigs more than they valued the man's liberation. The people would rather keep their pigs, their income, their stock values, their privilege and power, rather than see this man set free. This is what made the herd of Ham so deviled. If it means losing some pigs, keep the man shackled. If it means losing some pigs, keep the man naked. If it means losing some pigs, crucify the liberator. If it means losing some pigs, succeed from the union. If it means losing some pigs, assassinate the preacher. If it means losing some pigs, suppress the vote. If it means losing some pigs, oppose minimum wages. If it means losing some pigs, then ban foreign nationals of another religion. Separate families if you have to. Close the border. If it means losing some pigs, then resist equality. Forget fairness and defend discrimination. If it means losing some pigs, then keep quiet, stay silent, and stay put. Learn to live with injustice. If it means losing some pigs, then stomach the murder of children. Be okay with torture. Endure endless war. If it means losing some pigs, then water down the gospel. Ignore evil, neglect the poor, send a stranger away. Don't feed the hungry, don't heal the sick. And whatever you do, don't do anything to follow the sacrificial way of Jesus. Don't love others as you love yourselves. If it means losing some pigs, keep the man chained and guarded. The truth is that whenever a person or a group is liberated from oppression, there is another person or group that has some deviled ham to lose. Some things that they value more than the other's freedom. So a good question for us is, what is our deviled ham? What do we value more than another's freedom? Patriarchy? White supremacy? Heterosexism? Religious superiority? Homogeneous cities and neighborhoods? Homogeneous churches? Cheap fast food? Inexpensive coffee? Inexpensive clothing? Easy and quick access to guns? Another question is, are we ready to leave Galilee? Leave the familiar and the comfortable in order to bring liberation and healing and restoration to someone else? Are we willing to leave home so others can have a home? The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with Jesus, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home." That's a beautiful passage. Return to your home. Be restored to your community. Desiree Attaway, a consultant and a trainer, a coach, who helps to build equitable and inclusive working environments in companies and organizations, including IBM, United Airlines, the Girl Scouts, Rotary Club, Rotary International, writes the following: "We are all socialized into systems that oppress. We learn to accept oppression as normal. We are born into a social system that teaches us to accept things as they are. We are rewarded for accepting things as they are. We are congratulated for accepting things as they are. We become model members of society for accepting things as they are. We gain comfort. We gain money, connections, and power when we accept things as they are. People who go against the grain pay the price." I know there's a tiny, deep voice in your heart that is saying, "Well, I don't oppress people." That might be true. You may not actively oppress others, but here is the reality. oppression is still happening. Because this cycle and the systems they support continue to run uninterrupted. Oppression is the norm, not the exception. Justice is the exception, not the norm. Institutions influence individuals, and individuals influence institutions. The process is pervasive, consistent, circular, self-perpetuating, and invisible. The simplest thing to do is to do nothing. But we have failed to realize that we have become participants in our own oppression by doing nothing. Will you take responsibility for the oppression that continues? Will you stand up and confront the systems, the rules, and the norms? How, where, and when you confront injustice is irrelevant, as long as you do it. You and I are responsible for interrupting oppression. We are responsible for dismantling it. We are responsible for creating new systems and ways to share social power. Society will not transform itself. We have to break the chains. We all have to pay the price so that can happen. And this is my favorite part of this quote, because she must live or come from some place that I come from. Let's get to work, y'all, because freedom ain't free. Amen.